he said something that he said something very offhand, I would say it changed my life. It's a comment that still is with me to this day, and is kind of like an unofficial mantra for me, which is that, can I tell it to you if I have time?
My guest today is someone I would call a saxophone hero. He somehow manages to do more than should be humanly possible, and always at the very highest level. Bob Reynolds is a prolific jazz recording artist with a number of albums released as a leader. He is also a longtime member of the Grammy Award-winning band Snarky Puppy. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel that will appeal to anyone who follows my content, and he's about to launch his first European tour since his last one that landed right in the middle of the chaos of the pandemic shutdown during the spring of 2020. There are multiple moments in our conversation that I consider revelatory, the sort of ideas that you could frame and hang on your wall for a constant reminder or inspiration. Whether you're a saxophonist or not, I think you're going to enjoy this episode a lot and come away with some real value. You are about to go on tour in Europe. Tell us about that.
I'm going for I think this is the tour that's been rescheduled, for sure, at least 2 times. I think about 2 times with my band. So I'm going to Europe for 2 months, first 2.5 weeks or so with my group starting September 29th in the Netherlands and going through October 14th. I think we finish in Glasgow. I'm doing a masterclass in Manchester on October 16th. And then I go straight to Germany that night, and I start with Snarky Puppy October 17th, and I'm with them through like about a month later in November.
My full-length conversation with Bob, over an hour long, can be found on the BetterSax podcast, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. Please check it out and subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. For the YouTube channel, I've selected the lightning round of questions portion of our interview for your enjoyment. Yeah, I got some rapid fire questions. Just so. Right. So these are like the lightning round. Try to just give me the first thing that comes into your head.
Okay.
And then we go on to the next one. Okay. And it doesn't matter. Like,
okay.
These are throwaway answers. You can adjust, it's not like you're not committed to these for life.
Okay.
Okay. Favorite alto player?
Chris Potter.
Favorite tenor player?
Oh man, I hate these favorite, like a singular favorite.
I know, but I know they don't count. It's just the first thing that comes into your head. God. I'm not holding you to it. Nobody's going to hold you to these.
Joshua Redman.
Okay, great. Best year for recorded music?
Oh, now I want to say Stan Getz. Sorry, Josh. I love you too. But God damn it. I mean, it's like, okay, what?
Best year for recorded music?
1959. Oh, recorded music or jazz?
Anything, music.
Oh, well, I'm going to say 1959 for jazz. I mean, because to say all music any particular year, I'm going to stick with 1959 for jazz.
Great, man.
Yes.
What's the last recording you listened to?
The last one that I listened to, like a full album or just like...
anything.
Okay, sorry. I'm already overthinking the lightning round. John Williams and the Vienna Symphony Orchestra playing music of John Williams.
Okay, like Star Wars or what? Yeah,
like movie.
Oh,
some of his
soundtrack stuff.
Yeah, some of his great, big hits.
Cool. Okay, where are we? Most important recording for you as a musician personally?
Wow, I might have to go back to Josh and say Mood Swing.
Great. What's more important, mouthpiece or saxophone?
Ooh, I'm not probably the right person to answer that question because I've played the same saxophone for so long and the same mouthpiece for so long.
So if I had to take one of them away, which one would you want to keep out of those two?
Wow. I mean,
you are the right person to ask specifically for that reason. Because you're so attached.
It's attached to both of them. Wow. I mean, I think the saxophone, like the feel of the saxophone, is like so important because just how the darn thing kind of, starts there. I realize the mouthpiece can change a lot of stuff, but if you gave me a saxophone that I really felt uncomfortable, I mean, I support, again, this sort of depends. Are you giving me like an Adolph sax, or you just giving me a comment, another kind of
I'm just saying, which is more important, like, to you? Just
Never,
to, like, if you had to choose one.
Never ask me lightning round questions, Jay. I'm an instant failure. Okay, if you had to take, I would take. I guess I'll keep the saxophone. Jeez.
Okay. Right. Okay. It's okay. We're not holding you to it, man.
All right.
We're not taking either one from you. Okay. What's your favorite warm-up exercise?
Yeah, I do. Okay. I'll give one that's, I have a chromatic scale exercise that if I had to whittle it down, I mean, it'd be easy to say long tones because I do those, but let's just say those are a given. So I'm going to have I don't know if I can really describe it well, but it involves chromatic scale in octaves with arpeggios. How could I, I mean, I could just tell you, like, let's say you go from G up to G chromatically, very slowly, and then you come down a major third, so that would put you at D sharp. You come back up to G, and you then arpeggiate the triad down. So G, B, G, D, B, G, and then you start the whole thing up again, a half step from A flat. I may be misdescribing that, but it's basically you're doing a chromatic scale in an octave, and there's a little wrap around. It works out so that the timing works out. And then you do it up a half step, and I'll take that all the way. I'll do that thing all the way from low B flat until triple or quadruple F, like altissimo, F. And then I will reverse it and do the whole thing from altissimo F down to, high F, like forked F, and then arpeggiate up, and then et cetera, then go from E down to E, and E flat down to E flat, and I work my way all the way back down the horn to low B flat. And though that, if I'm doing it at quarter note equal, or, clicking, the metronome is at 80, and I'm doing it as, I guess, as eighth notes, or maybe I'm doing it with 80 as 2 and 4. I'm sorry, I have to, something like that. It's slow. It works out to sound like this, like like that tempo.
Okay.
All nice. Legato. That's it.
How long does it take you to go through the whole range?
I actually know, because this is as part of a book I've been threatening myself to write for like 10 years called the Saxophone Power Hour, which is a 60-minute power warm-up that includes this. So I know at exactly that metronome marking where I do it, it takes 11 and a half minutes.
Patience. Need some patience for that. Yeah, man. Saxophone Power Hour coming soon.
Yeah, coming soon. I know all the exercises have been done for years. I do them. It's just like putting it in book format that somehow I never get around to. But anyway.
Favorite time of day or night to practice?
It's changed. It used to be at night, and now I would say it's still. Can we just make my answer it depends for everything? And here's what I mean. I think creatively I have more fun practicing at night, but if I don't sort of do it in the day, I can't rely that it will happen at night. So it's sort of, the reason I say it depends is because if I know I really want to get to something, like, then I would say day, or like morning. Morning would be the best time. Ideally, but I still love something that can happen at, like, when the world is quiet and it's late, and I have the ability to play now, after many years where I can play at night and not bother anybody. It's just, I can't rely on that being like the only time I get to it. But when I have that, I still kind of find there's a different sort of creative source at that time at night. So. Great.
All right. These are easy.
Okay, sure.
Well, maybe they're actually probably not too easy. Favorite chord quality?
All right, minor 11.
Yes. That was great. Quick answer. Favorite tempo?
90.
90. Okay, so that's like kind of like a medium relaxed.
Well, I suppose you could get into what are we talking about the feel at that tempo? Let's see. 90 would be, so maybe, yeah, it's sort of, but somewhere in the sort of 80 to 100. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Somewhere in there. I'm going to stick with 90 just to try to make your life a little easier.
What's your favorite standard?
Maybe I'll go with something like Out of Nowhere.
Good one. Okay. Name your most important mentor and why.
I've had a lot. I've been fortunate to have a lot. Some of them don't even know that they've been my mentor. But most important. Well, all right. I'm going to say maybe Hal Crook, who was one of my teachers in college, professor I had in college. And he's not at Berklee anymore. He's retired, but he convinced me I had switched my major from performance to something else. I mean, I'd started as a film scoring major, and I think I went to jazz composition, and like I was reluctant to do performance. And Hal was a really tough teacher, but he also, so the flip side of that is like when he said something encouraging, it really meant a lot. And I as hard as he was on me, he was also, I could tell that like he believed in me, and he gave me really hard, challenging things to work on that I don't think I've ever encountered before, or I know I haven't encountered before or since. And sort of his approach to studying the practice of improvising, like the way he broke stuff down into small components, almost like treating it like weightlifting, like isolating muscles and such. Like I still have somewhere, I don't know where it is at the moment, but I still occasionally I'll find in like music books when I'm going through stuff, old notes from college, like from a class of his. And I'm like, I can't believe some of the hoops that he made us jump through. Just the specificity of like, I'll take Out of Nowhere, for instance. If you're playing Out of Nowhere for Hal and he's going to say, and you're working on non-harmonic triads, it might be like, okay, so in the first 4 measures, you play harmonic triads in measure 1, improvise with harmonic triads in measure 1, non-harmonic triads in measures 2 and 3, and in measure 4, back to harmonic triads. Like improvise, but with those kinds of restrictions, it was just mind blowing and really, really hard. And
well, I have his book. You know the book that he wrote,
the black one, How to Improvise. Yeah. I
mean, and it's full of.
I have his book. I have his book too, Jay. The question is, how much do you actually do the book, right?
Well, that's the thing, because you read it and it's like something like that, and you just be like, but there'll be like 20 different versions of that. Okay, apply this to a standard. Go. You know, like, okay, well. And like, yeah, that's the patience to do some of those things. But the benefits clearly that come from actually doing that work. Yeah. But do you have the patience to do it? And then, because I guess the idea is eventually that comes out when you're improvising. That, flexibility, instead of you're on autopilot, you're doing the same thing that you always do. Instead, okay, now I'm in total control because I practiced for hours and hours doing these ridiculous things where I forced myself to really actually be in control.
Yes. Yeah. You go way outside the boundary of what you probably will need to do or use so that, that you can use just a portion of it in a meaningful way. And the other reason that I mentioned Hal, he said something very offhand, but I would say it changed my life. It's a comment that still is with me to this day and is kind of like an unofficial mantra for me, which is that, can I tell it to you if I have time?
Yeah, please.
He said, we or should we just cut it there?
The secret to jazz right here.
Yeah. Okay. Next time on episode 2. So no, we were in one. So the thing is, Jay, you have his book. It's great. I have it too. I don't work from that book. I have it. I've had it with me for decades. I don't use it. But the thing is, I had the great privilege to work with him personally. That's one of the things, somebody left a comment on a video I made years ago about do you need to go to Berklee? And they left this rant about how stupid music school is. You don't need it. And it's like, yes, but did you get to study in person with Hal Crook? From, like major benefits that I got out of that. Sidetrack. But anyway, so because I was with Hal, because he didn't make me, but he encouraged me to stay a performance major, I also had to go through these crazy proficiency exams that Berklee has. Stuff that my point here is I would not have done these things if I was left to my own devices. They were hard. It was a lot of hard work, the tremendous amount of patience. And I had to do these things slow for hours and hours and hours and weeks and months and years. And if I was on my own, I think I would have just been searching for the next quick fix like any other human being. I wouldn't have done those things. So Hal held me to account in these ways. But one thing he said that changed my life was we were in this improvisation class where it was like a workshop. So there'd be people on any instrument. You might have multiple piano players or drummers or saxophone players, and he would rotate people around. So we're playing some song and he pulls up one of these sort of concepts. And I think it was, actually, I don't remember what it was, and it doesn't matter, but let's just say it was rhythmic displacement. So the way that Hal would come at something like this, the level of specificity is rhythmic displacement is taking an idea and then playing that same idea again with the same rhythmic structure, but on a different beat. And you could even then take it a step further. You could have symmetrical rhythmic displacement, which would be if you play an idea on 1, then the next time you play it on 3, because those are equal strong beats of the measure. Okay. Or if you play an idea on the and of 2, the next time you play it, you begin that idea on the and of 4. That's symmetrical rhythmic displacement. Asymmetrical rhythmic displacement would be if you start on a strong beat, the next time you play it on a weak beat or vice versa. So the first time you play the idea, if it's on the and of 4, the next time you play it, it's going to be on the and of 1 or the and of 3. Much more mentally taxing. And on top of this, oh, by the way, make it fit the chords and make it sound melodic and all these things. So very hard stuff. So we're playing, and a piano player who I know for sure, I don't remember the guy, but I know he was French, and he had a very wonderful French accent, which I won't try to emulate because I can't do it, but just kind of like the classic, I would say think of the classic cliche, almost like Pink Panther, like American bastardization of the French accent. Just imagine that sound. And this piano player said to Hal, he said, well, this concept that you're talking about, it may be fine on trombone, because Hal was a trombone player. He said, maybe this thing that you're talking about, it's maybe a trombone thing, but it's not for piano. And Hal puts down his trombone. He says, oh, really? He walks over to the piano. He pushes the piano player off to the side, looks at the rhythm section, killing rhythm section, by the way, goes 1, 2, jumps into the standard, plays piano sounding like Herbie Hancock. By the way, most people in this class did not know that Hal could play the piano, and fully demonstrates whatever the heck the thing was he was talking about with aplomb. It was beautiful. It was amazing. Hal, the piano player is up against the wall, just with his eyes wide open and his jaw dropping down. He felt really silly in that moment. And so Hal gets up and he goes, and I can't say exactly what he said. It's too hot for TV. But he said, look, man, would you rather be a drummer that can swing and chooses not to, or a drummer that can't swing and chooses not to? And that's it for me. That's everything. It's like you do this work, you acquire a lot of ability and skills and stuff, not so that you use them all, but so that you have choices. In fact, you never want to use them all. I never want to be like, maybe like a half a percentage of my performance time. Do I ever want to feel like I'm using the full toolbox? But it's nice to know, that things are there if and when I need them. And so Hal really kind of, like I said, he just sort of dropped that, but I've never forgotten it. And it always stays with me. It's like the reason you do things that you can't do. It's the reason you do things that you don't need for tomorrow's gig. It's the reason you don't do it so that you can then have to show everybody that you can do it. It's just a way of, learning, exercising the muscles, having the ability. We need to do this thing now. We need to play this tempo, this key, this song, this. Sure. Okay. Let's do it.
That's heavy. That's like, practicing things that you may never even use, but that's okay.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
That's heavy. Those are the things that very few people are going to be willing to do in the end, though.
Yep. I mean, I think
And that makes-
the only thing is if you are able to cross a bridge where you realize how valuable it is, and I guess if you realize, you have to realize it in some way. And I can't prescribe what that is, but you'd have to have your own personal sort of epiphany for why that is valuable and how it works out, in a deeper way, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where mentorship kind of comes in, because that's kind of how things like that become clear to an individual, I think, is when someone you really respect kind of lays it on you in a way that you say, okay, I think I'm going to try that. I mean, because otherwise, why would you do it?
Yeah. And back to Hal for just a moment, like I said, he played piano like that, but he would not consider himself he might not consider himself a piano player, but I remember asking him, like, how much time do you practice piano? He's like, not much at all. I just did it for 5 minutes a day for 7 years. But what he meant by that was legitimately he would spend 5 minutes a day. So Hal would always say his superpower was self-discipline. And he was really, so he was like, look, you either practice a lot of things for a little bit or a few things for a lot, whatever, you mix it up. But he spent 5 minutes every day working on very specific things on the piano over a long period of time. And then guess what? Whereas what do most of us do? We say, I want to learn the piano. I want to learn the guitar. I want to do, I'd like to have that result. What we mean is I'd like to have that result, but we don't create a plan at that kind of micro level to make the progress toward that result. I mean, I don't anyway, most of the time. I guess I'm fortunate in a few places I have, but in plenty of others I fail, and it's yeah, sure, I'd like to, but am I like the guitar? I'd love to learn the guitar, and I just never do it because every time I sit down, it's kind of bothers me and it's uncomfortable. And so I'm going to forever be like, yeah, I would like to. But Hal would say, well, I'm just going to, if Hal were attacking that, he'd say, okay, what do we need to do? How do we break this down? What can I do for 5 minutes for the next 7 days? He would map it out like that, and then he would do it. And I saw that. I saw it up close and personal. And so like you said, the mentorship thing, I said, well, okay, let's give it a try.
It's funny, whenever I ask that question, that mentor question, that's always brings out these. I remember I asked Jaleel that, and Jaleel Shaw, and he had this whole thing. I'm glad I saved that for the end. That's something. It's Tim. I think it was Tim Armicor said a story that somebody asked Jackie McLean how much he practiced, how much time he practiced, and he answered 365 hours a year. 1 hour every day. And I was like, great. Oh, that's it.
That's amazing. I mean, that's awesome, and it's so true. Just, if I can just get, even I've talked about this with people, even I've talked about this with Josh Redman and stuff. It's just if you get 25 or 30 minutes in a day, it's so much better than skipping the day. Yeah. But I often have this tendency to make these things in my mind, where I'm practicing means I need to have a big checklist and I got to do all these things. And if I somehow can't do all of those things, then I better just save it for tomorrow. And of course, that's not the right approach. So yeah, I agree with Jackie McLean's answer.